And that's what I think too, is that, I think that a lot of times we have been so trained that we need to be in a relationship to be happy. And the reality is that you have to be happy in order to be in a relationship, and you have to know how to communicate. Because you have to know who you are. And I find that a lot of times people go from one relationship to another relationship with no time in between, no time to get to know themselves. Well, why? Well, because it's so scary to be alone. Alone is that word that I hear all the time where it's like, oh my God, I'm alone. And, I know for me, and you just said the same thing, I was alone. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I love being alone. This is like so freeing. I can do whatever I want. But the cool thing is that when you're married to the right partner, it's not like it's pulling you down being with someone. So you feel that sense of freedom by being with the right person. It like brings out, and the story of Brooke and Tom is just so interesting. Had they not done their work and found each other when they did, neither one of them would have been able to get to the levels that they are. I mean, you enhance each other's lives. And I think that's such an important thing. I know for David and I'm where I am, and I can say it's not because of him, it's because we work really well together. And, your story, I don't know if you want to share a little bit of your they have
Which
a beautiful
part? Which
romantic
one?
story. Well, the beginning of that, I mean, I actually remember telling your sister, so my best friend Brooke, when we were in middle school, she was sick. And I remember, growing up being so worried all the time that she was going to die early. And, as her best friend, I was always worried about that. And when she met Tom, I was like, I don't know, like I was kind of worried he wasn't going to stick around because she was sick and was going to die. And I remember at your wedding, I was in the car, and I never told you this. First time saying the story, but I was in the car with your sister, and I was saying to one of our friends, hey, it's really great that Tom was open to being with someone who was so sick. And your sister was like, what's wrong with Brooke? And I was like, uh-oh. Did I just say something I wasn't supposed to say? I didn't know if it was a secret. And then I felt a little like backpedaled a little bit. And I was like, well, she has lupus and we don't know how long she's going to live. And she might not be able to have children. They actually recommended not to have children. And then your brother's marrying her. And, but I'm sure it'll be okay. And I really didn't know what to say at that point. So that was like a huge, and she's fine, by the way. So
what was the outcome of that? I realize now, I think back at it, I never even mentioned to either my parents or my sister that Brooke had lupus. It just didn't even come up for me that that's something I even need to talk about. But so what happened with that conversation?
Well, she kind of was quiet and took it in, and then there was like a little bit of awkward silence after that. And I really felt badly because I thought I just shared a secret that I wasn't supposed to share. I didn't know what was okay because, again, I had learned that with the significant other in the relationship, you had to be careful what you said around them because they were going to get upset. So now I was like, uh-oh, this is now going to go back to sisters, going to go back to Tom, and I shouldn't have said anything. So then there was my own anxiety that I had done something wrong. But, so it ended up that none of those things happened. It was, it was an amazing story because of that union and that you were willing to be with her no matter what.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. She told me she had lupus, and it was the most devastating news I ever heard. I mean, because here we are, even though it was a few weeks into the relationship, and I just realized this is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Nobody's ever made me feel so alive and open and just at home in myself as her. And I wanted to be with her for the rest of my life, and that was it. And when she told me she had this disease called lupus, I didn't know what lupus was. She had to tell me straight up that it means that I'm not going to live a long life with you. You're going to start having to take care of me in just a very few short years, like physically taking care of me. We're never going to be able to have children, and it's going to be bad. It's going to be miserable. It's going to be a slow and quick, painful, horrible trip to the grave, and you're going to be there every step of the way. I thought, still, it doesn't matter to me. I'd rather live a short life with her than a lifetime with anybody else. And the magic thing that happened was in preparing her to get ready for the wedding, she said, look, I want to look really hot for the wedding. I said, perfect, you married the right guy. I'm an expert in nutrition and fitness to help people transfer their bodies. Put her on a nutrition program, which just accidentally completely reversed her lupus. And now she doesn't have it anymore. We've got 2 beautiful children, and there's been no signs of the disease since we got married. And now we have an entire business which focuses around helping other people do the same thing. So what it boils down to is just it starts with the foundation of just absolute undying love, and the love and the relationship started from a place of two whole people.
Yep.
I didn't need anything from her. She didn't need anything from me. We both we both enhanced each other's lives.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I'm gonna say this straight up because it's the truth. A lot of people, the person they choose is the person they settle for. It's
Yes.
not their dream person. It's not their soulmate. It's the as good as I think it's going to get type of person. And right there, you're already starting out in a relationship where it's like, I'm going to learn to fully love you, not I am head over heels in love with you, and it's only going to get better from here. Unfortunately, that's probably one of the most fundamental problems with a lot of people in these relationships.
And one of the word that you use that I loved is it felt like home. And I think that is so important because that relationship has to feel like home. You shouldn't go home and feel uncomfortable. And think about that, whether physical home or in your relationship as a home, that should not be uncomfortable and anxiety provoking. I was going to say something about the relationship and now I forgot what it was, but the home aspect and going, feeling that at ease with the other person is just so important. Yeah. I completely lost my
I'll tell you,
question.
it's so for us, it's when we come home, it's not, and it's we don't feel at ease. We feel so excited and so overjoyed every time. So it's Brooke kind of describes it as you should be as happy to see your significant other as you see your dog. Your dog's like waiting for you, like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. Well, it's kind of like that, but in a human way. Yeah.
And so it came back to me. The question I get a lot also in my groups is questions about sex. So a lot of times they say, well, we have really great sex with this really toxic person.
Okay, yeah,
The
sure.
sex is really great. And so it's the first person that showed them attention and they had really great sex with. So now they want to hold on to it because it's really great sex and you don't want to let go of great sex.
That's right.
And, I give them information, say, well, hey, you can actually have your best friend and great sex. But what have you noticed? I mean, because realistically, sex is part of the equation, but what do you do the other 23 and a half hours of the day?
I don't know. I haven't had it in so long.
There you go. So tell us.
That's why it's important. You have to have a best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you're in the relationship because of the sex, eventually it's bound to get boring or it's bound to get less interesting. And if the love part doesn't inspire the sex, then you're eventually that's going to be a problem. It's like, like everybody, it's a superficial thing. You're in the relationship for a particular feeling. It's kind of like a drug, or it's like someone decides to buy a certain car because they think it looks so hot. Well, after a while, it's not the coolest car, it's not the hottest car anymore, and then what do you have to do? You have to trade it in. That's what a lot of people do. Yep. So I think I can't speak from experience because I've never really had that before. But if you're in a relationship purely for the sex, I think you're in a temporary relationship, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
Look, eventually he or she is going to get older, and the sex ain't going to be the same.
And if you feel trapped in a relationship because of the money or the sex or I'm too old, then you're also staying in the relationship for the wrong thing. Because you're in it to support each other and be each other's best friends, you're actually taking away both of your opportunities to find the right partner. Because there is someone out there once you do the right work. But like Tom said, if you don't do the right work, you're not going to attract the right person.
But let me circle back. So overall, there's nothing wrong with being in a relationship for the sex, as long as both parties understand that's what it's about. So let's just back up, because there's no way to really, I don't want to generalize it like, oh, you're in a relationship for sex, therefore you're bad. No, it's not that at all. In fact, it could be the best thing ever, because that's where you want to be in your life. You don't want to get too attached. You're not concerned with the soulmate part because you're not looking for your soulmate. Perfect. What's important is the other person knows that as well.
Yes.
So I know I have a friend that he calls me up. I coach him every now and again. He's in a relationship. He's in the relationship purely for the sex. She is in the relationship because she thinks that he's going to be the man that's going to ask her to marry her someday, and they're going to have their own set of children. They're going to live happily ever after. And he has not revealed that to her. That is completely wrong in my book.
Yeah. And to kind of add to that too is I'm going to change him or her. I'm going to love them so much that I'm going to change them.
Yeah. You know, Brooke and I, we have a business that's just centered and focused around changing people's eating habits. We have the hardest time with both of our intellects combined, getting people to change their eating habits.
And they're coming to you for it.
Oh,
so
yeah, and they're asking for it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an illusion to believe that any one person is going to somehow change another person that's going to fit their ideal relationship better without them even being aware of it. I don't think it's going to happen. I've never actually personally seen it happen. So I don't think that that's going to be the ticket. Yeah, you think you can have, you think your man or your woman is like a piece of clay and you're going to somehow sculpt them into this beautiful, beautiful statue that you want to have and hold for the rest of your life. It's not going to happen. You got to take them as is. You got to accept them as is.
Or you can do it beforehand. So beforehand you kind of pre-order. So like for me, and I know, and Brooke definitely did this too. You start thinking about, you start kind of crossing off on the list. Like once you've done the work on yourself, you know who you are, you're comfortable with who you are, and you've done your dating and you've done all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, I really liked this about this person, this about that person. You start kind of picking out those qualities and you kind of have this mental list. If someone is lucky enough to be with me, because you should feel like it is an honor, this is your time, this is, you know, your time on this planet. So if someone's lucky enough to be with me, then these are the qualities that they're going to have. And when she found, I mean, I knew as soon as she started talking about Tom, I was like, check, check, check. Those were all the checks that were there that she was looking for. So instead of finding someone and then trying to mold them into who she or we want, then you need to find someone that's already there, that's already doing those things, not trying to make them into something that they're not.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are there any, things you want to leave us with? We have a few
Well,
more
yeah,
minutes.
I think the most important thing is like really, really being in the habit of strong communication.
Yeah.
I mean, really communicating. Like, so I see so many people playing games when it comes to communication. Like, if someone feels really strongly about the other person, do they tell them right away? I mean, is that the usual thing? Do they tell them right away, listen, I love you, or I'm just head over heels? Or do they play some game where they let it wait for a little while? I mean, I think games is just the worst thing to do because you're starting off your relationship in an inauthentic way. I think that's, you're setting yourself up right from the very beginning for a disaster. You gotta be brave enough to communicate with anybody you're dating with or anybody you're in a relationship with. So you gotta have, number one, the courage to be able to speak your mind in a respectful way. You gotta be able to have the courage to share your feelings with someone, whether it's negative or positive. Because I think the biggest fear is that the other person's going to leave them. If they say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, they're going to leave them. So who would be afraid of something like that? Well, someone who is insecure with their own self.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So it's like they think that they need this person for some reason in their life, even if fundamentally there is a huge value that you do not agree with. It's just, it's a non-negotiable. I see too many people settling all the time. So communication is super strong. You got to be brave enough to fully communicate and to bring things up as they occur and happen and never hide things down. So you do that, you eliminate a lot of the most common problems. Number one, misunderstandings. Number two, resentment. Because that's what happens when you feel a certain way about somebody and it's negative, or you're mad at the way that they do something and you don't bring it up and you let the resentment just build up. That's going to start coming out passive aggressively and all these other different ways. It's going to just start to poison the relationship. So strong communication completely eliminates that, so it never happens. That's why Brooke and I, we just keep getting happier and happier every single year.
Yeah.
Like Brooke and I talk about this all the time. Like, how is it that like when I met you and when I got married to you, I knew that was like the maximum I've ever loved anybody. And every year that goes by, I love you even more than that.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's easy. It's effortless because of the communication. We're always open and we're always honest with each other, and we bring things up as they happen. We don't shove it down. We don't wait until later.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is so important, is that you communicate even when it feels uncomfortable and you're not sure. You're talking to your best friend, so you should be able to share whatever's on your mind. And I think that is really probably the biggest.
Yeah. So how do you help people do that? How do you help people communicate? Well, number one is knowing that the actual mechanics of communication, that's a learnable skill. Go seek experts to learn that. Now, Brooke and I, we're experts in doing that. We teach people how to do that. But go and learn it. It's a skill set. That means like if you've got a grievance, or especially when you're expressing things that are negative against the other person, how do you do that in a way that doesn't just straight up insult them? Because a lot of people just go in like full attack mode and they think that's communicating. No, you got to learn how to do it in a way that makes the other person not feel like they're being attacked. So that way they can be open and communicate back with you. The second part of this is having the courage to say and admit things. That is not a learned skill. That's something you need to bring out within yourself. That is a courage issue. So you've got two things that you need to work on if you really want to have blissful relationships. Is number one, learn the skills to communicate, especially communicating grievances. And then number two, build up your own person, your own self, so that you have the courage to say those things when you need to say them.
And the cool thing is that in my 6-step program, that's actually one of the steps is assertive communication, learning boundaries, because I didn't know what a boundary was until I was 34 years old.
Yeah.
Like you could tell someone your needs and expectations and they listen to what you say. Like that was so foreign to me. I didn't know what that was. So what are some ways that if people wanted to follow you, and we could go for hours on this,
Sure.
but what are some ways that people could follow you?
Absolutely. The easiest way, Brooke and I both have a portal, and you just go to smoothieshred.com. Smoothie, SMOOTHIESHRED.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Thomas Tadlock. My YouTube channel is Thomas Tadlock. But again, all of that can be easily found at smoothieshred.com.
Thank you so much. This
You're
was
welcome.
wonderful.
It's
This
my pleasure.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And, thank you for tuning in, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Have a great day.